And you know what's interesting is that I love how it's so interesting that NDEs, they often open up a person's intuition or chakras or something, because when they come back, they not only affect electronics oftentimes, but
Yes.
it's almost like because of their intuition, they can see and understand people a lot deeper. And so it's almost like if you ever had a person who was like a stranger, but you talk to them, and it's almost like they know you because their intuition is already uh, so open. It's almost like talking with them. They don't even feel like a stranger. It's a sense of a gentle knowing and calmness
I
and
would agree with
love.
that. I won't say on the whole everybody, but the ones that I've met, very few. There are some. This is the way I look at it. You know, if a headhunter or whatever they call it, a cannibal, has an NDE, they're probably still going to eat people. So, do they have a lot of wisdom? Maybe a little bit more, but they're still going to eat people. But so you're going to start with whatever you've got. But most of the people I find on this NDE trail or the spiritually transformative the trail that like, wow, this happened, that happened is they're kind of asking for it in a soul level. And so they're more receptive, they're more in tune with people's souls, they're more I would say grateful with the whole namaste, I see the God in you and you see the God in me. They're really genuine about that. And I do think that they do have generally higher intuition when they come back. But Ned, that's our natural state, right? Think about it. It's being more intuitive, more empathic, more understanding, more loving. But for many eons, we've always hidden our heart because nobody likes to get their heart hurt or rejected. But that's not what I find with NDErs, that you open your heart and they open their heart and it's a love fest. I don't see that in this community. And uh, I don't know if it's sometimes it's misunderstood because people think we're just talking about death, but we're talking about the celebration of life and how the soul goes on. And I think that's beautiful. So now, with your research, with being around this topic, actually being around a lot of NDEs, what are some of the NDE after effects that you've seen in people?
Well, a lot of them, I mentioned earlier. What's interesting is that it's almost like it impacts the person's aura or energy field, and so
Right.
like they often interact with laptops or watches or electronics, and it's fascinating because and that's an aspect of NDEs, like a few other aspects, um, that it shows it's beyond just a hallucination. Because if
Right.
if it was just a lack of oxygen and a hallucination in the brain, you wouldn't have people who return with these electrical problems
What do you
and
call it?
anomalies.
Malfunction. Yeah, malfunctions.
And but also, and there are other aspects when people come back, it changes them, um, because uh, they have seen and experienced something that is so much bigger and also profound, than what they were expecting. And this is a good point because sometimes people say that in the NDE a person gets what they expect, which isn't true at all. I mean, some aspects of it
Say that again.
maybe.
They get what they expect. Is that what you said?
That's what other people sometimes say,
Hmm.
and it's not always accurate, or actually it's hardly ever accurate. Like in terms of like Nancy uh,
Right. Yeah.
Ryan's, in her case, who was an atheist who had an NDE and ended up in a beautiful, a meadow in a landscape, and it was overwhelmingly beautiful. It made her cry because of that. And you hear about other people, like NDEs are often so far beyond what a person expects, and I love that because it shows that it's bigger than even our own imaginations. It's kind of like showing us um, a much larger and grander reality.
It's interesting because there are people that are atheists and they'll have people like guides. I'll tell you something interesting. It just made me think of this. Is that, gosh, I totally forgot about this. But so years ago, my husband's mother, very lovely lady, but just a really sweet, down to earth country woman. But she got ill. She almost died. Okay. And she was bad. Like the doctors came in the room and said she's going to die. I mean, they like had their family meeting. So it was critical. But she did not. But what she did when she came back, she said she saw an Indian, like Native American Indian, sitting in the field, which this wouldn't have been her belief system. I'm just going to say, okay, sitting in the field. And she wanted to go over to approach him, and he wouldn't look at her because it wasn't her time.
Wow.
One of her guides. And I thought that was kind of cool to come from just a real sweet, simple Georgia Southern woman.
Yeah.
That would have been, that was not, she was kind of simple, sweet person. And that's not in her vocabulary. And to come back and say, yeah, it was an Indian. He said, he's my guys. He couldn't talk to me and he turned his head because it was not her time. And I just thought that was profound because that doesn't fall in her religion or her understanding. And so when these kind of things do come back, I mean, I honestly, that would be an NDE. I never really thought about that. My mother-in-law had an NDE. And of course there's shared NDEs, which is really amazing when you hear the shared NDEs too. But so I want to go over, so the NDE after facts, we've got batteries. You're right, energy. Most of them are empathic, intuitive. I would say a lot do come back with psychic abilities or mediumship ability on some level. Even ones go, well, I don't use it. I hear this all the time.
Yeah.
I don't use it, but I can tell. I just, I don't really like, they don't like train it. I can tell certain things. They're like, I know when someone's in the room, or I know whatever. But have you heard that one where they're like, I don't use it, but I do know.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And I find it fascinating because have you heard of David Bennett, the NDE?
Yeah, I had David on my channel. I loved his story, and he talked about, oh my gosh, he had several NDEs, but when he was talking about, gosh, I don't know if you heard, he was really bad off. I think he had cancer. Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about? And then he had the glove that was brought to him, and she was like, I don't know what she was, an angel, a god, a nun. She wasn't. I mean, she wasn't of this earth. Is that what you're speaking of, David Bennett? He has lots of stories.
Oh
He's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because he talked about, and he actually wrote about um, his uh, first NDE he had. I think he was in his 20s, and it was in the ocean, and
Mhm.
and
That's right.
it was in the ocean off of Ventura, California, near Los Angeles, and it was actually March. And if I remember, it was March something, and it was nighttime and a storm. He actually drowned in the ocean. They were on a ship over there.
Yeah. Didn't he get thrown over or
Mhm.
something? Like, he was a young man. He got thrown over or something. That was actually on
Well,
TV. Wasn't that on a TV show?
oh yeah, yeah.
Story? What was the name of that so
I,
people can
I, I
watch?
think a National Geographic, and then maybe others also.
And Surviving Death or something. He was on one. I don't know if it's
Netflix, I think.
Netflix. Was it Netflix? Yeah. Okay.
Um, and it was interesting because he was you know, um, a male, 20s, typical mindset in terms of
Oh my God, that's
of,
funny. Okay.
of not spiritual and not thinking about intuition or anything like that. And after he had his NDE, he came back, and like he talks about how for I think weeks afterwards he actually saw auras around everything, like even plants, palm trees. He's looked at the palm trees and they had colors around them. He's like, what is this? What is all the energies? And so, and because you were asking about, when people,
That's another after effect.
well, right.
Seeing auras. You're
and
right.
and he talked about afterwards, he did have the intuition and the knowing of what would happen in the near future. And so he talked about even at his work, he actually worked on the ships, and he talked about how sometimes when his boss needed something or an answer on something, he already had the answer, and he would tell them, and they would ask him, how do you know that? That's, and he just had the answers, the intuition, and he learned he had to be careful how he used it. So like that was what you're talking about earlier.
You're absolutely right. And it was funny because I have my interview with him on my channel, but he was talking about, it was really good. I enjoyed it. But he talked about, he said he was arrogant, young, cocky fella, and totally had a personality change. And he explained, the process of everything and how they would want to know why he knew how to correct things. Yeah. And his story goes on from there because he had multiple NDEs, but you're right. You're right. He had multiple NDEs. I guess seeing auras. I think also what seems to be maybe possibly disturbing or upsetting to some people that, I mean, honestly, anybody, if you're human, you could have an NDE if you live long enough, you could, but it's when they start hearing people talk to them like guides or angels or seeing them or hearing them. He also said that he started seeing angels in the hallway, and I see them as splashes. I see them as colors moving, like I don't know. I mean, do they really have colors? I don't know. It's just somehow I'm interpreting it. I don't know. And I've seen it in orbs. I've seen a flashlight or orbs, and it's the frequency of how bright it was. I felt it be an angel. Not that people can't be that way too, but I see, and he sees them as colors too. I've seen them in my experiences as figures, but more like light beings. But he's seen them like that. His was interesting. But you're right. I think it's just your perception. You go to a higher sixth sense.
Well, right. And what's interesting, and here's a question. Do you know about Daniel Brinkley? I think everyone's heard of him, right?
Oh, he was the one that changed my life. Are you kidding, Ned? I can't believe you're bringing Danny and Brinkley. If you're listening, you changed my life because back when he came out, Saved by the Light, and he talked about the beings of light, I started crying. I went, that's what I saw, beings of light. And he started talking about that. And I was like, and he started talking about being outside of his body and what it was like. And before that, you didn't talk about that. I mean, when I read that and he had his book come out, I was probably in my 20s and I was like, oh my God, nobody talked about that. Any of the stuff that he experienced. And it changed me. Like you said, Nancy Ryan's story changed you. His story changed me and I started to remember. And then I don't think I was I didn't feel ready to look at it all. Okay. So sometimes these things, these spiritual experiences or NDEs don't come out till later in life because people need to be at a place they feel safe to let it come out. And that's okay.
Right. Well, exactly. And he, what I love about his story is, and have you seen the movie based on his life?
It was still pretty good. Eric Roberts was in it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And, because I love it, especially at the end, the ending, because at the end of the movie, he was actually, I think, speaking at a conference on NDEs. And then at the end, a little old Southern lady walked up to him, basically told him that, how he used to like alcohol and women and just, his personality. He used to be a bullier and stuff. And she said, if God picked someone to spread his message, Daniel was a really interesting choice. And he responded something like, definitely. And he smiled, which I love because his personality, and his background, he used to be a bully and completely the opposite. And then he comes back and he's talking about the beings of lights and stuff, which is so cool because he's not like a guru or he's a person with a loud personality, which
Right.
I
A
appreciate.
bully redneck. Yeah.
And it's cool to see him talking about these things and how changed he
Yeah.
is because
Yeah,
of
I
it.
mean, there's hope for everybody, but he said he was not very nice, and when he saw his life review, he that really touched me. He said he was a bully, wasn't very nice when he in his book Touched by the Light, he was talking about that when he had his life review, he would feel it not only from his point of view, but the other person, and he had killed someone in combat, and he felt it from he felt it not just his perspective, but all at the same time, it's like a 3D IMAX, but how the guy felt about it, how his family felt about it. And he's like, oh God, I cannot care. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine killing someone that somebody loved, or killing someone, but killing, and then all these people, and you feel it? He said, I had to come back and do better. I hated who I was. But, one thing we didn't talk about is second chances. NDEs give some people a second chance because he came back nicer, kinder, all these psychic gifts. The chant, what was it? Let me think here. It was the movie with Christopher Walken. Oh gosh, the something
Um,
zone, the Dead Zone. That's a good one. Great movie, y'all. If you haven't seen it, the Dead Zone is older. What is it? The 80s, whatever. But the Dead Zone, and that's actually kind of like Danny and Brinkley. He came back knowing all this stuff. People wanted to use him for like winning the lottery and all these things. And then when he did try to warn people about like, don't go on this road at night, the bridge is going to, flood. They thought he was crazy and wouldn't listen. It's very similar to the Dead Zone movie, but he was really ahead of his time coming at him. Betty Eady, right around that same time period. And we're talking about things that people did not talk about. But I actually, I know his cousin. I did a medium demonstration at Aiken where he lives, but he doesn't
oh,
live there now. He lives somewhere else. But I met him years ago. I don't know if you know this, but Danny and Brinkley used to. I got to get him on the show. He's a
yeah.
trip. But and he knows my sister-in-law anyway, because she used to be involved with MUFON. Now he's kind of crossing over some of the UFO stuff too. But anyway, yeah, it's funny. His cousin goes, "Yeah, you know, Danny, he's way out there. He's way past that psychic stuff. He's talking to the damn ETs now." And I was like, "Okay," but anyhow, he used to talk about a little bit about his NDE, but then he would do psychic readings, and he would just go, but they weren't just like cheesy psychic readings. Like, oh, oh yeah, you're gonna have a baby or something. They were like really soulful psychic readings, and he
Important.
would say, don't worry about it. It's all gonna work out. Like, they were sweet. Does that make sense? They were a little different. And I saw him in public once or twice. I went with my sister-in-law, and we saw him. She was friends with him, and his big thing at the end of his talks is he would have people stand. Like, all he did was hug them. He would hug people, and he said he had to be careful of that because he didn't want to look like he was a groper. But he would hug everybody. That's what he did. So it can change someone's very core of their personality, but we don't need to have an NDE to do that. We honestly could have a semi life review now, don't you think? I mean, it sounds like that you have. I have too. Meaning we can go, well, I don't really like these people or what I'm doing, or let's look at things I liked and didn't like. Let's think things I could change. Let's think if I done things that I don't like. Let me see if I can change that. I mean, to the best of our ability, we can do some of that here. You don't have to die to do that. I mean, do you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and when I think about it, like the more I've learned about NDEs, it's at the point where, like, if I died now, I'd probably feel like, wait a minute, like there was so much more I could have done, and made that impact, because it's and when you hear about people saying, well, a lot of the souls there are actually really eager to come here, as odd as it sounds,
I've heard
because it's
that too.
such a opportunity. So when I think about that, and I think about, like,
Mhm.
almost all NDErs talk about the ripple effect of all of our actions, and that what we do and say and energy we put out, it does impact people. And so, and we will actually experience and feel the result of that. And so why not have them,
Uh,
you
yeah.
know, be a good vibes instead of the opposite, So love, compassion, helping people who need it, helping ourselves if we are struggling, if we are not happy, actually finding what makes our heart happy, and then so it can expand and then help others. You know, just like the cup overflowing.
Absolutely. And I also think that being true to yourself. I mean, isn't that a Bible thing? I don't know. Be true to thyself. What does that mean? Don't do stuff. My mom would always say, if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Right.
If you don't want to go to that party, if you don't want to be, and she's right. I mean, you don't have to be mean about it. You can say, oh, thank you, but it's not my cup of tea or whatever. I don't know what you say, but we should not be doing things we don't like. I mean, if you don't like it, I mean, I've been asked to go camping. It was so funny. Someone asked my husband, oh, yeah, we want you and your wife to camp. He started laughing. He goes, yeah, we don't use the C word in this house. She doesn't do that. She might glamp, but she don't camp. Okay, I'm making a joke, but the thing is, I don't do that. I'm not doing that. I mean, camping is like red roof. I don't do. That's just me. Now somebody else love it, love it, love it. But everybody's got differences, things they like and they don't like, and like I don't like card games and games. I like active sports. Like I'm a martial artist. I want to get in there,
Wow.
like, throw me a football, I don't want to play dominoes. I mean, so that may sound silly and I'm being jokey, but seriously, don't do that stuff. I tell people I don't play board games and they're like, oh, come on, you'll be fun. I said, I don't play board games. I get bored. I need more active stuff where, let's try doing aerial, things up there. Okay. And so we have to know who we are and what we like and what we don't. Go ahead.
Well, and that's a great example. And returning to astrology and the energetic makeup of us. And so, like when we talked about action, and you mentioned how you're kind of in the border between the Pisces and Aries, and so that action definitely is your Aries side, because the Pisces energy is more of it's sensitive.
Play a board game.
Empathic. Well, it's empathic and sensitive and a giver. Aries energy wants action.
I know. I can't help it. Okay. But look, here's the thing.
It's positive.
It is positive, and I am the biggest cheerleader for people. Anyone that knows me, look, I'll support you. I'll give you name. I'm always been like that. And some people go, I'm a PR personality. I'm freaking an Aries. What do you expect? You got to be around a Taurus. I mean, woo, their Aries is like a baby Taurus, but we should, look, it's hard being here. We don't want to be hard on ourselves. We don't need to be hard on other people. And the only thing that we can be responsible for is our own happiness. We can try to show love to people. We can try to be friends to people, kind. But they got their own path. They got to figure out what's good for them. And I think you're right. We don't need to get it to a spiritual emergency state. And honestly, I'm not joking about this. I've had lots of people I've read lately all over the world, and I don't know why this keeps coming up. But they're in a spiritual emergency. They're like waking up, and they're like, but it's like they're seeing everything too much at once, and they're freaking out. And a lot of it is because they're not living a life true to themselves, and you don't want to get to that point. You want to know who you are and accept it. You know what Jesus told me? He's so funny. He said, accept all of it like I accept you. And he made a comment about like Clint Eastwood. He goes, all of it, the good, bad, and the ugly. Because he said, all of that makes who you are. That's how you learn. Because, I'm okay with it. Why aren't you? So we can look at times in our life like, oh, I really like that. I was kind of superficial, wasn't I? We can look at that and we can change it. I can tell you when I owned my ad agency for years, I like the creative side of it. Got to do too much of the client management on the management side. I like more the creative side. Although I was good at that, I just thought the balance was out. But I like me better now.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Because I know people like me for me, not what they can get, but they like me for me because of just me, and I let them be them, and they let me be me, and there's no weird games.
Danian, he said something. Wait, I think it was either a Danian or Howard Storm. One of them. Both of them are NDEers, and I think. Oh yeah, Howard. I think in his NDE,
It's great.
he was actually talking to a council of
Elders.
beings,
Yeah.
and they were telling him he had to return. And like a lot of people, including yourself, he argued with them. He's like, "No, it's so amazing here. I don't want to. Earth is just, it's painful, it's difficult." And then he talked about how if they would send him back, he would just make the same mistakes all over again. And he because he had his life review, and he saw his arrogance and all the impacts, how he hurt everyone, and so he's like, well, if I go back, I'm going to repeat that all over again. It's just going to hurt. And they actually told him, the purpose of Earth is for one, actually making mistakes and actually falling down, and then two, learning from them, and not repeating them. And so they basically told him, look, it's okay if you fall, if it's hard, and the whole purpose of life is actually trying new things and learning. And so yeah, I love that.
It is. It's beautiful. I love Howard Storm. It's so cool. He is absolutely one of my favorites. I had him on this channel. He's like episode number 5. He's one, and it's one of my favorites because he afterwards we do Q&A, and he goes into all sorts of stuff because he's very open book about aliens. How Jesus showed him like, oh yeah, there's other solar system, and showed him. He goes, okay, well that's good enough. He said it was like Star Wars, the bar scene. He said, okay, I'm done with that.
Yeah, but I remember that when he said that.
But he said that he was like Nancy Runs. He was an atheist. He made fun of Christians, and he said he came back as a Bible thumper. I said, how'd that work out for you? He goes, not really well. I said, interesting. He said that he did that for a while. Didn't get, it kind of turned off a few people, and then he began to change. But he's a lovely person, full of wisdom to listen to. But the way I look at it with him, it saved his life. He was around people that didn't really care about him. They were into status and his status and all of this, how many awards he won or this or that. And inside is something really beautiful. And I think if we get to that really vulnerable, mushy part, I'm talking about etherically, not our, organs, but etherically in our soul, that's where the good stuff is. And that's the stuff people don't want to let come out. That's stuff you need to let come on out and be vulnerable, because just us having this conversation and people knowing how we think or things we think about is vulnerable. But these to me are important, and so I'm willing to risk people. I'm way past people liking or not liking what I have to say. All you can do is be you, the best you. You're going to make mistakes. You just correct them the best you can. But everybody needs to be themselves and to live in their truth. And I am just, this is such a beautiful example. Our conversations that we've had about, this is not about just NDEs. This is not. This is about why we're here on a soul level. To me, I think this conversation has not really been about, is not really been about death, but is about celebrating life while we're here. And also seeing, wait a minute, pondering not just what we do in the in-between status, but we're like pretty big souls, like what does that mean? What does that mean? Please subscribe, like, and make comments, and support this channel by becoming a member. Thank you for your continued support.